Well, I had every plan in the world to get going from Thibodaux and get to Texas, because in this part of the country, spring is short-lived and it becomes summer like that. And it's getting warm, and when it's even a little bit warm outside, it's multiplied inside the van, and it is getting kind of hard to sleep at night. But so this part of Louisiana, the coastal section, is called the Cajun Coast, and outside of Thibodaux there is the visitor center for this entire area. And I just swung into there just out of curiosity, and I think that most people go in and ask, where they can get breakfast or lunch, but you'll never get the reporter out of me. So I'm always asking like just a million questions about where I am and the history and who lives here and all this. And this poor woman who, again, is probably only used to answering one or two questions, I think I scared the piss out of her because I was just asking so many questions. She got kind of like overwhelmed. So every time I'd ask something, she'd just start handing me pamphlet after pamphlet. She must have given me the whole damn wall. I'd be like, well, what about this? She'd be like, here's a pamphlet, just to get me like out of her face. She was adorable. As I was leaving, she yelled after me in a very Cajun tone, which I can't replicate. Like, will you just come back anytime? I don't think she meant it. But here we are, and after I read through all of this, I'm not going to be able to just zip through here because there's all kinds of cool stuff on the Cajun Coast, and it would just be a lot quicker if America didn't have so much cool shit in it. So we're gonna pay some respects to this part of the country and go see the Cajun Coast. And Texas, I'm gonna get there sooner or later, but there's just so much in between, so let's do this thing. My first stop is Morgan City, which on a Sunday in a Catholic parish is a ghost town. Nothing is open besides the bridges letting football field-long cargo ships up and down the river. Historic flooding in the Midwest is now inundating the Gulf. Parts of Morgan City's Riverwalk have vanished. This is the never-ending fight of the Cajun Coast. The word Cajun is kind of thrown around without any real nod to the people who settled this entire area of Louisiana. Cajun is actually tied to Acadian, and the Acadians were French. They were up in Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, that part of Canada. And what happened was in the late 17th century, there was something called the Great Expulsion. And to make a long story short, they all migrated down here to this part of Louisiana. And over time, Acadian became Cajun. But when people hear Cajun, what they usually think of is food and the Cajun accent. And the Cajun accent, I can fake a Southern accent easy. I can turn on my New Jersey accent like they're, no problem. But the Cajun accent is really, really hard to even come close to pulling off. And you'll notice that as you go to all these different communities in Cajun country, each one has its own twist on the dialect. But it is such a vibrant, friendly, colorful part of the country. I love this part of Louisiana. I'm gonna skip New Orleans because it's a little bit too much for me and I don't want the babe bus in that busy of a city. But let's go to all these small Cajun communities because here is where the true natives live. Well, first, the obligatory Coke Zero. But anyway, look at the difference. Here's our water level right now. This is the seawall. Back there are the massive gates that they have to close off to keep the river from blowing down their community. Height of the water, and then compare that to the height of the city. I mean, we are completely underwater. This seawall is the reason that Morgan City exists and the reason why the Babe bus is parked right over there, safe and sound. So imagine my reaction when I see it leaking. Feeling the need to play town crier, I try to find a soul to notify as though I'm the only person who noticed. And I am reassured that death is not imminent. Imagine, though, the pressure building up behind these metal doors as that water rushes to the ocean. Small it may be, Morgan City holds its own. Hollywood substituted its swamps for a jungle backdrop and shot the first Tarzan movie here. In the 30s, it was known as the jumbo shrimp capital of the world, and by golly, they are proud of their shrimp and their petroleum. They even have a festival for it. Oh, I hope they sell t-shirts. This is also where the first successful offshore oil well was drilled, marking the dawn of what was called the area's Black Gold Rush. I heard there was an oil rig in town used for training and sometimes offered tours, but like everything else, it's closed. Damn it! One of the many charming things about small-town America is that if there's a phone number, you can probably talk directly to the owner, and that is how I met Virgil.
If you're in this, you're only going a few hundred feet.
I'm sure Virgil was enjoying his day off, but after my 500th question about the rig, he very graciously drove to the site and opened the gate. No one has ever been so excited to step onto an oil rig as I am right now. The rig is affectionately known as Mr. Charlie. He's the first submersible drilling rig used offshore. Mr. Charlie's design was revolutionary in the 50s. It turned oil drilling into a portable, self-sufficient island with a crew of 58. I got to see where they slept and where they ate all their meals. Note the notice of decorum. In the 50s, in a heavily Catholic state, do not think that working offshore means you'll be saying grace in flip-flops and sweatpants. Back then, Mr. Charlie could drill in water up to 40 feet deep, which was record-breaking. This feat completely revolutionized offshore drilling and for 4 decades helped fuel the world. In the 80s, new advances were made, and today, we can drill in water nearly 4 miles deep.
You just keep adding, you see these joints of pipe?
Mr. Charlie was put into retirement. Sensing my unhinged enthusiasm for Mr. Charlie, Virgil offers up an added bonus. He knows the Coast Guard crew who controls every move cargo ships make on the river, and he can get me up into their digital crow's nest.
Access to the same system.
Night and day, they man the bridges and the waters. They've seen boats crash, they've seen them capsize. They are the eagle-eye guardian angels of the shipmen. And now that I'm here, I realize they probably also could see my jumping up and down with excitement on Virgil's rig. That show is free, boys. While every stitch of the rig's story was utterly fascinating to me, and I learned how most of it works, I really think Virgil is the true star of this stage. Virgil was working in construction safety when he heard that Mr. Charlie was about to be scrapped for parts. Unable to fathom such a critical part of industrial and economic history being shredded, Virgil had an idea. What if he could give Mr. Charlie a second life? Use him to teach the next generation of rig workers and educate the public on what it takes to get the gas they put in their cars. He petitioned City Council and jumped through hoop after hoop.
Here's the legs.
Where does one man store a 220-foot-long oil rig and keep it operational? Well, Virgil saved Mr. Charlie and subsequently preserved an era that the rest of us would have no other way of experiencing. Virgil didn't need an oil rig, and he didn't need the extraordinary amount of risk and maintenance it demands. He wanted to do something for his city by preserving what makes it special. And while Mr. Charlie will forever go down in history for its depths, I would argue so should his owner for his lengths, the lengths he went through to protect the past. If petroleum is what fueled the economic growth of Cajun territory, cuisine is the fuel of the zesty jambalaya that makes up this area's culture. Our next stop is waging a full-blown war on bland food.